As you just pointed out, that there's nothing else but this pure presence or pure awareness. So actually, even in times when we are completely identified with the object, we actually never encounter anything else but this pure presence of awareness.
Yes, we can say, when you say we never encounter anything other than the pure presence of awareness, the pure presence of awareness never encounters anything other than itself.
Right.
In order to seem to know something other than itself, pure awareness must rise in the form of the mind. And only as mind can awareness cease shining its light of knowing on itself and turn round and seem to shine its light of knowing on something other than itself. In other words, in order for awareness to seem to know something other than itself, it needs to take the shape of the mind. And mind is a finite kind of awareness. Now, how does infinite awareness seem to become finite in order to know something other than itself? By identifying itself with a finite object called the body.
Yes, but even this idea of a finite object is made out of the substance of pure awareness.
Absolutely.
So how does this veiling come about? This, forgetting ourselves.
The veiling comes from the point of view of awareness. There is no veiling. The veiling is only from the point of view of the illusory entity that thought manufactures out of infinite awareness plus the finite body. Thought, which is only made of infinite awareness, associates infinite awareness plus the finite body and makes out of these two a finite self, which a temporary consciousness, a finite consciousness. It's only from that one's illusory point of view that there is something called the veiling of awareness.
But from my understanding, everything then should have the quality of knowing. Even the mind or even thinking should have the quality of knowing.
You're absolutely right. Think about anything now. Anything at all. It doesn't matter how intelligent. Or in fact, take two thoughts. One of them intelligent and one of them unintelligent. Yeah? Take these two thoughts. 2 plus 2 equals 4, 2 plus 2 equals 5. Ramana Maharshi's thoughts, Hitler's thoughts. Doesn't matter. Yeah? Is there anything present in those two thoughts other than the knowing of them?
No.
All that's there is knowing. Now, if the same knowing can take the shape of 2 plus 2 equals 4, and a moment later 2 plus 2 equals 5, then the knowing itself that is taking the shape of these two thoughts cannot itself be limited by either of the thoughts. Yeah?
Yes, but I do not understand why, let's call it quality, a quality of identification can take place in a space where there's just knowing. How can sort of something like not knowing or forgetting ourselves even seemingly arise if there's just knowing?
Because in order for there to be manifestation, there must be form. In order for there to be form, there must be limit. In order to know a limited object, you have to first be a limited subject. Therefore, in order for there to be manifestation, there has to be the apparent duality. Because manifestation implies limit. Manifestation implies form. Form implies limit, a separate object. And to know a separate object, we must first conceive of ourselves as a separate subject. In other words, for manifestation, there has to be two substances. One, the stuff that the object is made out of, and two, the stuff that the subject is made out of. What are these two substances called? Matter, it's the stuff the object is made out of, and mind, that's the stuff the knowing subject is made out of. Therefore, mind and matter are co-created simultaneously in order to bring about manifestation. It's why there's, from a conventional point of view, there's not just one substance. in experience. There's two. It's why there's mind and matter.
But then the question arises, how can, in something like the formless, which is all there ever is, something like a form arise? Or how can, in something like which has no dimension, something like a manifestation of a form arise, which has a dimension? So,
in the same way that because light is inherently colorless, it can assume all colors. That the fact that it is colorless means that it has within it the potential to become any color. If light was tinged slightly yellow, then only yellowish colors would be possible. It would be yellowish green, yellowish blue, yellowish red, yellowish grey. In other words, there wouldn't be an infinite possibility of colors. There would be a finite number of colors that were possible, and they would all be tinged yellow. It's the same. It's precisely because awareness is empty, colorless, dimensionless, that it has the potential to appear in any form.
The second question is, in times where we are completely identified with an object, actually it doesn't matter because we encounter only aware presence anyway.
That's true in theory. When you say when we are completely identified with an object, it doesn't matter because even then we are still infinite awareness and all there is infinite awareness. That is true in theory. However, the effect or the result of being completely identified with an object is the experience known as suffering. That's what the experience of suffering is. It's like a red flag saying you have mistaken yourself for an object. That's what all suffering tells us. So it's true that even then, from the absolute point of view, your suffering is made out of infinite awareness. However, at that moment, you do not know that. Because if you did, you wouldn't be suffering. So whilst your thought might bring in a memory from the past or from a book that says, oh, everything is made out of awareness, your deeper experience, what is really true of you, is that you don't know that. What you really know, what you really feel is that I am a temporary finite object. And I don't like it. I want it to change. I don't like the now. So if, when we are suffering, we say to ourselves, well, my suffering is just made out of infinite awareness and all I'm experiencing is infinite awareness, all that is actually happening is that the ego or the suffering self has simply appropriated the non-dual understanding, which it doesn't really understand, otherwise it wouldn't be suffering. It has just borrowed the non-dual understanding and washed it like a thin veneer over itself and is masquerading as understanding. And why is the ego doing this? Simply to perpetuate itself. It's just one of the slightly subtler ways that the ego perpetuates itself on the contemporary non-dual scene.
Thank you.
And sooner or later, we may spend a few years fooling ourselves that our suffering is just made out of infinite awareness, it's all the same, there's nothing to choose between happiness and suffering. We may console ourselves with this belief for a while, but after a while, after a few months or a few years, our suffering will compel us to go out in search again. It's not possible to be suffering without seeking happiness. So sooner or later the cracks will begin to appear and we will find ourselves not satisfied with this veneer of Advaita. We will want to go deeper into our experience to find true happiness, not just a non-dual belief, oh, everything appears in awareness. Because beliefs are not satisfying. Even the most noble beliefs are not satisfying. What is satisfying is peace and happiness. And it's not possible to experience that if we believe ourselves to be temporary and finite.